Indiana basketball is in the race for two of the top centers in the nation for the 2026 class. Can Indiana and Darian Devries pull off a miracle?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Thank you so much for making that so. Also, thank you for making us the #1 sports podcasting network. And also, thank you for making Locked On Hoosiers a 7,000 subscriber YouTube channel. That's right. We hit 7,000 subs yesterday. So thank you so much for doing that and making this your go-to spot and just checking us out, whether it's been for one video or all the videos. Doesn't matter to me. Thank you so much for being here and supporting the show in any way that you have. We've got a lot to get to on today's show. We're talking college football playoff rankings as Indiana remains the second-ranked team in the country, as they should. I know there were some conversations there that A&M could jump us, but it didn't happen. So we'll talk about that, what the bracket looks like, and how that could change down the stretch. Plus, Indiana basketball plays tonight. They take on Milwaukee at home inside of Assembly Hall, part of a nice stretch of home games for the Hoosiers coming off the electric win over Marquette. But we start with Indiana basketball recruiting today because this week and next week are very important for Indiana Hoosiers and for Darian Devries, okay? And apologies, probably a little quieter today, sound stuffed up. I'm still battling sickness, so apologies there, but we're doing our best. And I know this is coming out a little bit later, but just bear with me here, and we're doing everything we can, okay? But this is an important week, and so is next week for Indiana basketball in recruiting because we know that you've got two in the class, right? You've got your first commitment in Prince Alexander Moody, and then you pick up Carvalho, right? We talked about him a couple of weeks ago, top 50 guy, one that I said saved the class, and I think that's the case for Indiana to where your recruiting rankings, you can look at it if you want to. I don't think it's worth it right now because you only have two in the class, right? But you at least get Carvalho, who is a shooter, is a developmental piece, is a very electrifying player, and one that I think could be good down the road. So you at least go and get the big name, big ranking, if you will. But there are two more guys because everybody else is pretty much off the board that Indiana's going after. But there are two more guys on the board that Indiana is desperate to land. And they're two guys that you know. They're two names we've talked about. They're two names we have covered heavily on this show. And we'll start in chronological order of how they commit. One is this Friday. One is a week from today on next Wednesday, okay? Again, apologies. The first one is Ethan Taylor. All right, Ethan Taylor, the second-ranked center in the 2026 class from Branson, Missouri. You're battling with Kansas, Michigan State, Oklahoma, Oregon was in there too. But Indiana has done everything they can to be in this battle, okay? He's 7 feet tall, 245 pounds, and he's very talented. All right. He's a 7-foot center. What more can you say? He handles the ball well. He picks and rolls nicely. He can dunk it over anybody. He's physical. He's lean. He's mean. And I think has a chance to be really fun in college basketball, no matter where he goes. And I think Indiana has put themselves in a position to land this kid. But if you notice, I haven't really given a prediction since we've talked about him or any of the times that we've talked about him because I don't think anybody knows. I don't think anybody knows where this guy is going. I think it's been that difficult. I think it's been that crazy of a recruitment process for Ethan Taylor. And I do think of the two that we're going to talk about today, that this is the one you have a better chance to land, but I simply don't know. He commits this Friday, okay, November 14th. I think he's doing it on the CBS Sports YouTube channel. He'll do that live. And so I think Indiana is in the best spot for him compared to anybody else, at least on the Hoosiers board, right? But I simply don't know. Okay, so you're probably battling with Kansas and Michigan State here. You're battling with two of the best coaches who have ever coached the game who have ever recruited for college basketball, right? So if you win, it would be an upset. It absolutely would. It would be an underdog comeback story for Darian Devries in Indiana. So Ethan Taylor is one. The other is the number one ranked center in the country in Arafan Diane, a guy that we've talked a ton about on this show. He's ranked 16th overall, according to 24/7 Sports. Ethan Taylor ranked 27. So these guys are right there neck and neck, okay, two of the best players in the class. And the general consensus here for Arafan Diane, and I told you this, I think the last time we brought him up on the show, this is a Houston lean. Okay, this is one that Kelvin Sampson and Houston have done an incredible job on, that Indiana has done everything they can despite that. And I think the Hoosiers are in second. I think the Hoosiers would love to have this guy, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Okay, when you start picking up predictions and crystal balls for Houston, it's probably going to lean that way. Okay, so Arafan Diane, he'll make his decision coming up next Wednesday on the 19th. That's his birthday. He was always going to do it then. I'm thinking it's going to be Houston, but Indiana would try to pull off the upset there. I think you're number two, so you're trying to land him, or you're trying to land Ethan Taylor. Okay, if for whatever reason you do land Ethan Taylor this Friday, then you definitely won't land Diane next Wednesday. That's just kind of how that goes. But if I'm just going to be honest with you, I don't think you land either of them. I don't think you get either one. I think Indiana will swing and miss here. And that goes against what I've said for a long time, but I just think that's kind of how the cookie's going to crumble here. Again, you still have two in the class, which is fine. It's not great, but it's fine for what a new coach and a new staff had to do coming in. Then you got to go hit the transfer portal. But I think this cycle was whack. It was. The 26 class, man, some of these guys and some of these names and some of the dollar amounts just kind of got out of control here. And so I just don't think Indiana wanted to be a part of all that. And I think Indiana still has work to do. I think Indiana still has a reputation to rebuild. And so could you land one of these guys? Absolutely. I'm just making a prediction that it doesn't happen. But if you do, it would be Ethan Taylor over Arafan Diane, in my opinion. So Diane commits this Friday, Taylor commits this Friday. Diane commits next Wednesday. We'll see if the Hoosiers are able to land one of the top two centers in the 2026 class. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, we will stick with basketball as Indiana is in action tonight. They host Milwaukee. We'll talk about what happens, and a sneaky good shooting team are the Milwaukee squad coming in. So we'll talk about them, plus the stretch coming up for Darian Devries right after this. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. If you need parts fast for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here again, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics and making us on the Locked On Network your number one, or the number one sports podcast network in the country. So thank you so much for that. And again, for 7,000 subscribers here on YouTube. And so we continue on, okay, talking basketball as Indiana back in action tonight, coming off a very fun win over Marquette the other night, the other day, rather, on Sunday, right? That game taking place in Chicago. And, man, I just go back and I've thought about that game a couple of times. And, man, how much fun was that? Right, how much fun did we have watching that Indiana team just roll Marquette 100-77? And I did tell you, right, in the post-game show Excuse me. I did tell you in the post-game show that I don't think we can expect Indiana to shoot like that all the time. And I do have a fear, and I said this over the summer, and I will continue to say it because unfortunately it's going to happen at some point. This team will go ice cold from downtown because they shoot so many, and at least through the first two games, they rely on their threes. We're 2 games in, and both games have started with a made three. Like, did that ever happen in the Mike Woodson era? Somebody go back and do some serious research, and I will shout you out on this program because I doubt that's ever happened. Or I doubt it ever happened under Mike Woodson. Back-to-back games that started with a made three. No, there's no possible way. But that tells you, that right there just shows you the difference, right? And what that era was and what this new regime is preaching and what this team in particular is looking for when they get the opportunity. They want to shoot the basketball, and that's exciting. But I'm telling you, there's going to be a game where Indiana just gets got, right? You just get caught where basically with your pants around your ankles because you can't make shots. And it is what it is. But given what we had to go through, I would much rather it be this way where you're hot, you're not. And then you're hot, rather than the teams we saw in the past that just refused to shoot the ball and never had a chance to score, right? Unless you were 3 feet from the basket. So, yeah, the highs are high and the lows are low, but you at least have an idea of what you're going to get. And so that's why I like this Indiana team. And so that's what was fun about the game against Marquette on Sunday. And you hope that Indiana is able to bring that same energy, bring in that same effort, and bring in that same consistency to this game tonight against Milwaukee, because you've got now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight games at home, does the Indiana Hoosiers, before you go on the road for your Big Ten opener against Minnesota. So you have an opportunity to rip off some more wins here. Those are Milwaukee, Incarnate Word, Lindenwood, Kansas State, and Bethune-Cookman. So that Bethune-Cookman team, sneaky good. Don't overlook them. But for Milwaukee tonight, right, you start diving into some of the numbers here, and this team can score. All right, they're 2-1 on the season. Okay, they beat Hampton 90-86. They lost to Wofford 86-76, who lost to an SEC squad last night. Can't remember who it was. And then Little Rock, they beat 92-72. So this team can score. All right, Milwaukee, the Panthers coming in, can score the rock. All right, the guys that you need to worry about if you are Indiana, Seth Hubbard is their guy. He's their guard. He's their main dude. He plays over 30 minutes a game, averages 19 points so far this season. He shoots at 54% from the floor, 80% from the line, and 53% from downtown. He is their dude. So I expect either Wilkerson or Connerway to be put on him and say, good luck, buddy. Try to score on those guys. You've got him. You've got a couple of more guards in there. You have some big forwards. Indiana will not have the biggest guy on the floor tonight. Indiana will not have the biggest guy on the floor tonight because you've got a couple of them, and I believe it is this guy, Faison Fields, who is 6'10", 220 pounds. So I don't know how Indiana wants to combat that. I don't know what the Hoosiers want to do. I assume that they will want to run the floor, right? I assume they're going to spread it out. They're going to play 3, maybe 4 out on offense and try to force a bunch of turnovers and just get out and run and shoot some shots. That's my expectation, okay? And this will be obviously the best defensive team that Milwaukee has seen so far this season. But that's what I look for Indiana too, is can you play 40 minutes of defense? Can you take your individual assignments seriously and win on the defensive end to get to the offensive end? We've talked about that with this Indiana squad. Get a stop to go get a bucket. And I think if you have that mentality, and I think Devries has put that onto them, but you have to accept that, really, right? You have to embrace that, if you will. And so I look for that tonight. And with that defensively, I look for Indiana to do it without fouling. Okay, can you do it without fouling? And hopefully the officials put it in their pocket a little bit tonight. But Some of those were on Indiana. That Marquette game took 3 hours because Indiana couldn't keep their hands off of guys. Keep your hands to yourself, right? If you do that defensively, you're going to be fine. And this may be a game because of some of the size that they have. You may not afford or be able to afford Reed Bailey to be in big foul trouble or Sam Alexis to be in big foul trouble. Like that just may not be an option for you. And I don't want to see guys in foul trouble. I want to see what rotations you can put out there. I want to see what this team can do offensively. So I want to see that. I want to see the ball movement continue to be nice. I want to see the off ball movement continue to be nice for Indiana. And then we'll see what what health statuses are, especially for a guy like Nick Dorn, right? Do we see him out there? How much does Trent Sisley play? Not from a health status, but just from a getting in the rotation at a more comfortable status. I don't think the guys who haven't consistently been playing, I don't think they're back tonight. So overall, you should win this game. You're favored by a lot and you should win this game. But just take care of business if you're Indiana. Feed off the Marquette win, feel good about yourself, and come in and do the right things. And hopefully you can play some of those younger guys and some of your newer guys. And maybe you do have the opportunity to play different rotations together. Maybe you can play Reed Bailey and Sam Alexis at the same time. Maybe you can play, Trent Sisley and Devries together and run a two-man offense. Maybe you can do stuff like that. I don't know. It just depends on what the score is, but you've got to take care of business first. So Indiana and Milwaukee tonight. It's an earlier tip, right? It's a 7:00 Eastern tip that's inside of Assembly Hall. The goal is to go live tonight on the YouTube channel, and we'll post the audio for you on our audio platforms if you listen over there. So that's the goal, is to go live tonight after Indiana and Milwaukee. That, again, is a part of several games at home where Indiana will take on Milwaukee Incarnate Word, Lindenwood, Kansas State, and Bethune-Cookman before you hit a brutal stretch of at Minnesota, Louisville, Penn State, and at Kentucky. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back and flip over to football, where Indiana continues to be the second-ranked team in the country for the college football playoff. And you know what? That's how it should have been. It never should have changed. And we'll talk about that, what it means, and where Indiana goes from here. That's coming up on our final segment of Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here and putting up with whatever it is that I have and sound like. I mean, we're going on a week, but you know what? You do what you got to do. The grind don't stop. So thank you so much for being here and, again, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. And so, final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers, and we are flipping over to football because the newest playoff rankings came out last night, and there was some drama going in, okay? There was some drama going in about should A&M jump Indiana because they dominated Missouri and the Hoosiers struggle with Penn State, and are other teams going to jump up, and will the SEC continue to dominate the rankings? And that is true. The last one is factual, but it didn't happen for those SEC people. A&M did not jump Indiana, nor should they jump Indiana. The Hoosiers stay at number 2. The Buckeyes are at 1, and Texas A&M's at 3. In fact, the top 5 as a whole didn't change. It didn't go anywhere. Ohio State, Indiana, A&M, Alabama, and Georgia, they all stayed the same. Texas Tech moves up 2 spots to number 6. Ole Miss goes down 1 to number 7. Oregon back up to number 8. Notre Dame's at 9, which is a joke. And Texas is at 10. There's Oklahoma at 11. And this is where it starts to get interesting. Okay. This is where it starts to get really, really interesting because the SEC is about to be in a situation, and Big Ten fans can be mad all they want to. They're about to be in a situation where they have an argument for 5, 6, or even 7 teams to make it to the college football playoff. Like, that's where they are right now. And I mean, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. There's nothing that the Big Ten can do about it. But that's just how this thing is playing out because they have so many teams who are legit. They have so many teams who I think are good football teams. And I know all they do is beat up on each other, right? All they do is stack up ranked wins because they play one another. But man, you can't argue with 1 and 2 loss teams in the SEC. I just don't understand how we can do it. And so I'm still confident in the Big Ten in terms of your top teams, right? Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, but I don't think we get another one in. I don't think Michigan or USC can get hot down the stretch and squeeze their way in. I really don't. And man, the ACC is a joke. The rankings showed that last night. They put Miami at 11th. Okay. And that's where they fall in the bracket, right? Indiana now matched up with Texas or Ole Miss, which I'm fine with. Okay. I'm fine with that. Texas is inconsistent. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin lose big games. So I'm good with that. And that would be on a neutral site location. A&M matched up with Miami or Texas Tech. I think Miami's a fraud. I think Texas Tech is good. Ohio State would play either Notre Dame or Oregon. I think Oregon's good. I think Notre Dame is a joke. Or Alabama. They play either Georgia or South Florida. So regardless, what this tells me, okay, what this tells me is that Indiana win your games and you're a top 4 team and you'll probably be the second ranked team in the country. You should be good to go. The SEC right now has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in. I think that could very well be the case. I think they could get 5 teams in because the ACC is a 1 bid league. The Big 12, as of right now, okay, is a 1 bid league. Notre Dame's going to steal a bid from somebody, even though they don't deserve it. And then this is where the G5 guaranteed thing comes in that I don't like. Okay. The guaranteed G5 spot was put in there for years like last year for a team like Boise State, who had a good resume, who had a good record, and deserved a shot at the playoffs. They had a guaranteed spot. They made it in. And that was the correct call. Okay. This year, the guaranteed G5 spot should not be a thing. South Florida does not deserve to be in there. Boise State does not deserve to be in there. Tulane does not deserve to be in there. Not right now. Okay. It's a cluster in the G5. And that is going to be a bid that is stolen from another team that deserves it, whether it's from the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, or maybe even Georgia Tech out of the ACC, believe it or not. The G5 automatic bid this year is going to steal a bid from somebody. That's a team that doesn't deserve to be in, that's going to get in. Now, that doesn't overly impact Indiana, but just to talk about this in a broader term for a little bit. So regardless, the Hoosiers are fine. And there are SEC and A&M people that are upset, but they'll get over it because Indiana's the better team. Win your games, and you're going to be just fine, right? And so, again, you're the 2 seed. You're matched up with either Texas or Ole Miss. You would then go on to play either Texas A&M, Texas Tech, or Miami in the semifinals. I like those matchups. I think it would be fun. But for Indiana at this point, man, win your games, and we'll worry about the matchups at a later time. So there you go. That's today's Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much. This is a blast. I know I sound like crap, but I also feel like crap. But here we are, and I want to do this for you. And I know it's late, and apologies for that. But thank you so much for being here and supporting this show, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on audio, however you do. I'm thankful for you. Okay, we are going to try and go live tonight after Indiana and Milwaukee basketball. We'll continue talking recruiting, talking football, previewing Indiana and Wisconsin on the football field, and a whole lot more. All right, Hoosier fans. So we are back tonight and then tomorrow for another episode. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.